Hi guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we're joined by the wonderful co-hosts of the Generation C podcasts. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves for us? Just tell us your name, subject, what you're studying, what year you're in.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Sikemi and I'm a first year at Cambridge studying geography.
And my name is Malini and I'm also at Cambridge and I'm studying modern languages, but specifically French and Spanish.
Malini, go ahead. It stems from you.
So the podcast is called Generation C, and I guess that kind of stands for Generation COVID. I think we kind of realised that no one was kind of giving our Gen Z side of things, but specifically the Gen C. The thing that we can't kind of ignore the fact that our generation has gone through something that's so unprecedented in our formative years. And I think having our take on things is so much like, it's kind of refreshing because we're kind of hearing things from our parents' level and like millennials, but we kind of saw that there was no one doing this. So we thought we wanted to talk about our experience as Gen Z members of, the COVID land, and also just Cambridge and social change and things that are going on in our lifetime that are affecting us, and affecting us not just personally, but as a generation.
When we were brainstorming the name, I think we had three things for the C's. So it was COVID, Cambridge, and change in terms of Generation C. So we've spoken about things like diet culture, which I personally found very interesting because it's something that it's quite a taboo topic and it's quite easy to speak about it in a wrong way. So brainstorming that and thinking through that podcast was really great because it made you realize that there are so many different perspectives. There's so much to consider. That's the one that definitely stood out for me. Malini, I don't know about you.
I think for me, the one that stood out the most was the activism one. And that was kind of one of our longer episodes. I think it was the first one we did. And, we're still finding our feet and trialing different things every week. But I've really, really enjoyed speaking about activism and how activism online differs from activism in real life, if you like. And obviously COVID's forced us online. And seeing whether that's actually effective and whether we actually respect people who will do those kinds of things. I just found it a really, really stimulating conversation, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too, like the whole idea that some people don't potentially take seriously online activism just because it can sometimes be seen as people making a fuss or trolling as such is a really interesting topic. And especially with everyone being forced to go online, that kind of culture has very much had to change. We can't necessarily all go to the streets and protest or speak online like we used to. It has to all be online now just because of the COVID situation. I think it's a really interesting thing to look about. Is there anything that particularly caught your eye in terms of advocates and access and stuff that really got your mind thinking about how the online internet has impacted that network of activism?
I think it wasn't a particular person or a particular account that caught our eye. It was more the fact that everyone is getting involved, but for different reasons. And looking at that, we found quite interesting. As we said, we're not experts or anything. No one's really an expert, but when you actually think about it, you can see that there are differences in people, which is okay, but it's just how to tackle that and how to go about dealing with the issues that we're facing in a positive way on the internet. Because as you mentioned, Gemma, it's very easy to see someone posting something and think, oh, they're just trolling or whatever, anything like that. So taking the information that they put on there and using it in a positive way, I think is the best way that we thought throughout the podcast, what we were discussing is the best way to go about it.
It's been great, actually. I didn't actually go down a traditional route because I'm doing French and you can't take French if you haven't done the A-level, but I actually didn't do the A-level. I did another qualification, which meant that I was kind of scared for the French course, just purely because I hadn't done it in quite a while. And I did the DELF instead. So it's the kind of standardized test to say you can speak French, essentially. And I did that up to like B2 level, which I kind of claimed was A-level, and then the kind of interview was okay. So coming into Cambridge, I had quite a lot of imposter syndrome, I think, for the French side of the course, purely because I just hadn't studied it in so long. but it's actually been really refreshingly kind of nice in the sense that everyone's on their own like journey in a sense with their learning. And there's people who are worse in speaking, there's people who are better in writing, and it does all just kind of balance out, which is quite nice. But on the Spanish side of things, I always loved Spanish and learning about Latin American culture. So yeah, we do get quite a big broad spectrum of things to study as well, which is really, really nice. And I didn't think I'd enjoy medieval literature so much, but I do. Not sure I'm going to continue it because it's hard to read, but yeah.
So I would say it has been what I expected in terms of so geography, as I already mentioned, is quite a simple subject in terms of everyone knows what it is. What I would say is that at other universities, you often get the choice to pick between human and physical geography, but at Cambridge, they like to keep it quite broad so that you get the opportunity to do both. And for me, I'm quite a human geographer, so I found that kind of not difficult, but it was a change that I had to kind of adapt to, but it's been quite good because it has broadened my horizons and allowed me to look at both sides of the subject rather than just one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you know, but Medwards is quite an under-applied to college, and I think the fact that it's a women's college kind of plays into that, and there's kind of a lot of not many people want to be at university. They don't kind of see university and gender separation mixing. However, I will say that despite being pulled here, I've had the best experience so far. I can't kind of knock Medwards for anything, to be honest. I don't know about you, Sikemi, but it's just been such a different experience to what I thought it would be. And thinking about Murry Edwards when I didn't really know it, versus how I know it now really well. I think kind of for us, we want to demystify that, especially because no one really knows about us.
Definitely. It's something that, again, we wanted to address in the podcast, but just the fact that it's so hard to find out about different colleges. But again, colleges, and we in particular, are working to improve the access that you have. So our college has recently got a YouTube channel as well, so that people can see that you can have a normal life and go to a women's college as possible.
So Sikemi and I are both on the Murry Edwards JCR, and I guess it's also like the student union. So it's the Murry Edwards College Student Union, and I'm actually the president this year. So we've just had our elections. We've just had our whole new committee come in. Sikemi is the Green and Environmental Officer. So we'll be working on lots of fun things like Apple Day, which is a really big one for Sikemi. But I guess for me, it's kind of my job as JCR president is kind of to oversee the committee and like sorting out things like events for the colleges. Hopefully COVID permitting, we're really, really trying for that. Sorting out things like accommodation problems, any sort of issues that people have in college. We're the kind of voice to take that higher. And that's really quite rewarding, I guess, in a sense, when you get things done. But we're just coming into the role, so it's all quite fresh and new.
Very new. Would you just be able to tell us a little bit more about Apple Day for people that aren't aware of what that might be?
Yeah, so because we're all in first year, so we haven't actually had an Apple Day. It normally takes place in Freshers Week. So all I really know about it is things that I've heard, but it's a Medward specific thing where we have lots of gardens in our college and we grow lots of vegetables and fruits. So Apple Day is where they pick all the apples in the college, and the kitchen staff make apple crumble, and we've got a fire pit in the garden so people roast marshmallows, and my role in that is to organize music. So it's kind of like just a chill evening where the apples are the main theme, I guess. It's very, very random. And when we first heard about it, we thought it was a joke, but it's genuinely a thing. But yeah, so that's pretty much the main activity that I have to host as part of my role.
Yeah, that's something really interesting. I personally hadn't heard of Apple Day. It does seem that some colleges have weird little traditions. At Trinity Hall, I haven't yet come across one as such. But I know the duck race that we host with a couple of other colleges, normally obviously COVID hasn't allowed us, is a really big thing. So Trinity Hall is one of the river colleges at Cambridge, which means we're right on the River Cam. So we normally host a little duck race where they'll put out like little plastic ducks and put them in the water, and we'll just race them along the river, which is always great fun. See, I haven't been able to do that this year, but that's normally a really good highlight for us. Is there anything else that you're looking to work with in your role to kind of advocate a more greener college? Like, I know we've had some bits where obviously we're on takeaway containers at the moment at our college cafeteria, and they don't allow us to sit in the halls themselves just because of COVID. So one of the things that our access officer and green officer have really been looking at is trying to reduce the amount of takeaway containers we can use through stuff like making sure people have their own cutlery that they can bring from their own accommodation, just to reduce that kind of plastic waste again, and kind of limiting down the size of like plastic containers that we're using to try and hopefully reduce that waste, while also making sure that it's still COVID safe. See, we're not able to use our own plates and stuff at the moment just because we're trying to keep everyone as safe as we can.
We've had a similar problem. Our cafeteria is actually called Dome. And if you search Murray Edwards up, you'll probably see why it's called Dome, because it's like a massive circular shaped building. But we have all plastic cutlery at the moment and takeaway containers. And that's something that I think it was actually Malini's idea for that, which was to maybe get people to maybe have some money taken off their meal if they bring their own cutlery, because it is quite easy to just not be bothered. It's all there, all wrapped up. You can just pick it up. So maybe having that incentive was something that we were thinking about. But generally across Cambridge, I would say that divestment is quite a big focus for green officers at the moment. And divestment is something that's really tricky to understand. I've had so many people messaging me asking me what divestment is. So I guess in simple terms to explain it, it's taking money out of funds that are not environmentally friendly. So colleges at Cambridge are invested in lots of different funds to get money, but lots of these funds are using extreme amounts of carbon, or they haven't committed to divestment. So lots of colleges have been focusing on trying to get their colleges to leave those funds and to invest in more environmentally friendly ones. So that's been the main focus, I think, across all Cambridge green officers. But Medward specific, our role is actually called Environmental and Ethical Affairs as well. And part of the reason why I applied to it is because I like the ethical affairs side and I enjoy volunteering and things like that. And that's definitely something I want to bring into the college. So I'm looking to host fundraisers and pick charities every term to fundraise for, general things like that, clothes swaps. So just bringing both sides into the role, I think, is what I'm going for this year, but hopefully COVID doesn't get in the way of that.
So the election process for us is pretty much all student run. That's kind of what we pride ourselves on as a JCR. It's always the student voice, and that's our kind of job, is to get that student voice across to the higher up and kind of change things basically that we're not happy with. So that kind of trickles down into the election, which means that we have a hustings. You have to prepare like your manifesto, you have to come with a speech. For the president and vice president roles, it's about a 5-minute speech or something. And obviously it's all online this year, but we all sort of showed up online to this Zoom and let all the candidates kind of have their moment to campaign, I guess. I'm sure everyone got really well versed on Canva, which is an online kind of, what would you call it, like digital marketing kind of tool. To create all of our manifestos and things. But then the second part of it is electing all the other committee roles. So once we had the vice president and president roles sorted, there's a second stage where the green officer will be elected, the access officers, events, all sorts of things. And on the JCR, I think we have 22 roles at the moment, which is quite a big committee. But it's okay. I'm managing for now.
Yeah. How's the workload in terms of that? Is it quite a lot to take on? I know I certainly looked at looking for JCR positions and decided against it just because of the potential commitments that I would have, and didn't know if I had the time for it at the time, and really wanted to be able to do a role that I'd be able to commit to. So have you guys got any kind of gauge about how long you're going to be spending on these roles? Is it particularly flexible?
I think I was just going to say, because I know you probably have quite a different experience to me by running the whole JCR, but it definitely differs from role to role. And it is definitely what you make of it, because I guess if you want to do a good job of it, you have to put time into it, but it's definitely not something that is ridiculous or unachievable. I would say maybe at the moment, before term starts, a couple of hours a week, but that's just brainstorming things. But when term starts and things get running, I think it would differ entirely depending on what you want to get done that term. But you have so much support around you with the other JCR members. You often get a subcommittee to help you. So it is definitely manageable. And I know that all colleges have the sort of environment where you can go to people and be like, I need help me out with this. And everyone's more than happy to help out. But I know that the president role is quite different. So.
Do you know what it is? I think I completely agree with everything you're saying, but it does just feel, because essentially all of the sort of emails and things, they'll just come through me. So I'm sort of the distribution center. any sort of event that people want to organize with our college, it comes through me and then I have to send it on. But that at the moment is okay because there's not too much going on. But I will say there's a lot of things with COVID, everything's changing so much all the time from day to day. So yeah, I'm in contact a lot with the senior tutor of our college, just because we need to be, because things are changing and welfare is such an important thing at the moment for our students. So it's a lot, but it's something that I enjoy, and I really think it's rewarding at the end of the day, because you're doing things for everyone, if you see what I mean. Yeah. Okay, so I guess for me, because it wasn't necessarily my first choice course, I was less bothered, I guess. And it seems awful to say, but I really did just really like the architecture in Downing. I think I mean, you know, you have to like where you're living, I guess. You have to kind of find it pretty, and that was kind of what I was thinking at the time. So I think that was pretty much the only thing that determined it. I think it was also on the open day, the first college we saw, and it was in the sun, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then we didn't really look at any other ones because I thought that was cool. Yeah, I don't know about you, Sikemi.
I was the exact same. I came to the open day in year 11 and it was a really hot day. So we visited Downing. We looked around Cambridge and we were too tired and hot to go around the other colleges. But looking back on that, I would say it is really, really important to actually research the colleges because they are all so, so different. In terms of living environment, they have different room structures. Some of them don't have full kitchen, so that's really important to you. You need to know that you're going to end up living in a place, because it can be quite a shock. You get your offer, you don't get told anything until the summer before you arrive, and then suddenly they tell you you don't have a kitchen and you're like, oh, okay, so how do I eat? So I would definitely say it is so important to research colleges, and it's quite easy to, I would say, at the moment. Lots of colleges have JCR Instagram, so you can just go on there, have a look at pictures, and I know that people, as a fact, you can just message the JCR and ask them questions and they will be more than happy to answer those questions, give you pictures or whatever. And I was definitely scared to do that when I had my offer. I didn't want to message these university students. I thought they wouldn't have time for me. But now actually being part of it, I know that if anyone was to message me, I would be more than happy to give the time to explain stuff to them because it's quite complicated as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really great initiative. It's really great to see some of the colleges trying to get that more access in terms of social media. I know a lot of colleges have started using Instagram in particular, so it's really great just to be able to see that kind of additional resource instead of just a website. So I think that's really great. You mentioned kitchens. On Trinity Hall Central site, which is where I'm at the moment, we have these things called JIPs. So they're pretty much very basic kitchens. So we currently do not have hobs or an oven or a freezer. So I've certainly got very limited kitchen resources. So a lot of people do tend to eat in what we call CAF. So you guys call it dome. We call ours CAF. It's pretty much just our college cafeteria. The food is really great. So a lot of people often eat in there as opposed to trying to tackle the microwave for cooking. We've had a few attempts to make various cakes and whatnot in the microwave, but it hasn't necessarily always been the greatest of successes. So I think looking at that kind of thing, such as kitchen facilities, is a really great thing to do. And I can certainly agree Downing is a really beautiful college. It's certainly what I looked at myself, but I personally walked into Trinity Hall thinking it was Trinity at first. I was a little bit lost, little wee me on like my open day, and I was like, oh, I really like this, walking around, and Mum's like, I don't think they're in the right place. Turns out we were not in the right place, but it just happened to be how I got to applying to here. I personally use the student room quite a lot. There's a certain page on there, and we'll link it in our description box, which tells you a little bit about each college and the kind of pros and cons that students who have lived there have suggested. And I personally used that to shortlist 6, and then we went round to those 6 on a very rushed open day, trying to fit everything in. And I then worked out what I wanted from there. I really do feel that you sometimes just walk into a place and really like it, you just fall in love with it, or it just seems right. Like as you said, you walked into Downing and were like, I don't really need to see another college, because like sometimes you just get that feeling. So I think certainly if you're able to go to an open day as and when they open is always a really great thing to do.
I guess the one thing I'd say is just go for it, purely because you never know. And all of us have had, you know, out of all of the friends I've made here, I don't think there's one that thought, yes, I'm going to get in. You know, you never know. And you got to just understand that. And I don't think you're ever going to lose anything from going through the process. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Do you have anything to add?
I would say that my advice is to have an open mind, because the process is so long and so much can change. As we both said, we were pulled, and it's easy for people to go into that situation thinking, I didn't get into the college I want. Firstly, I don't want to go anymore. Secondly, oh, maybe I'm not good enough to get in, but it's definitely not the case. And having an open mind really makes you realize that things happen for a reason and you get put where you are, and it all works out in the end, and it's probably even better for you in the long run. So yeah, definitely have an open mind, and as Malini said, go for it, definitely 100%.